I shifted to Chennai from Kerala to do this project. For the last 27 years, 28 years, I took over this project in 1995. The project was inaugurated in 1996. Only that block was there during the inauguration. This was added later, this was added later, this block was added. So the buildings are still coming up. We just completed one Muslim house from Calicut. When you go around, you will see it. We are just going to start one house from Coorg, one Kodava house, which have been dismantled and kept, so which we are going to start. So, when I came to Chennai, I used to come here every day. I used to come here at around 9:30, leave in the evening. That was my schedule because I didn't have any projects in Chennai otherwise. Because when I was handed over this project, it required so much involvement, so much. It was a gigantic project. The project didn't come. There were so many architects who worked on this project before I took over. There were many who turned down the offer to do DakshinaChitra because they thought that DakshinaChitra is a project which will be very difficult for them to do. When I did this, there were later people told me so many architects refused to take up because they did not know what to do. You had to see 30 years ago, 28 years ago, when I took over in 95, the word vernacular architecture was not there. Nobody thought that this is something which could be done. The building, the main entrance building which you entered was completed in 1996. At that time, when I did these projects, it was not the first project I'm doing on these lines. When I was doing these things, many of the people told that what is so great in using old pillars and columns and building in a traditional way? He is one who is using old pillars and old roofs and old materials and doing it. 30 years ago. There were people who said that this is not creativity. There were people who said this is not what should be done. But 25 years down the line, the same people who criticize me are doing the same thing now. Because there is a huge clientele demand. I see so many works of the youngsters and even seniors trying to do traditional buildings or buildings looks like this. So, I learned tremendously doing this project. Doing a project another project I'm doing for the last 15 years. Huge project, that is some 300 crores. Amount has already been spent by this. So this is 28 years I'm handling this project. This project, I hope I will handle till my death. Because it's like coming home. I know where each pillar is put, how it is put. There are places I carried concrete while doing this building. I can do good masonry work and reasonably good carpentry work. So I just pointed many of the walls, I pointed with my hand. Because I used to come here in the morning and leave at the evening. One incident while we were doing the project, 96 summer, we announced a project, wrote to all the schools of architecture in South India. The number of schools were much less. We said we'll give food and accommodation free. And this is a time when we are building up, the construction was in full swing, or reconstruction was in full swing. Any students can come and learn. Stay in the campus. because some of the quarters was ready by that time. Anybody can come, learn. I was here throughout that time. Only 2 students applied. Feminity Trichy. Now if I put this thing in here, we do workshops. I've not done any workshops for the last 4-5 years. It's always oversubscribed. Yeah, done on various topics. I want to do it again, but because of the paucity of time and everything, I'm not able to do it. So, this is something which is there. It's, I don't want to go. I just thought this is more like a question answer session today. So if you don't ask questions, we'll wind up the session in 15 minutes. You can ask questions about this one. I don't know whether you have seen my works or my projects or what kind of works I do. You are second year students. So I don't expect you to learn much, but if you want to talk anything about, I will say 2-3 sentences, few things. One is that I came into architecture by accident, pure accident. I met Laurie Baker at one of his sites. I don't have a degree in architecture. Although I do huge scale projects, I do master plans of cities, master plans of campuses, many. We are a team of about 20-25 people. Medium-sized office. We are in the process of expanding. Our office is run in an apartment. We have bought one more apartment. So we are doubling the office space. Work is going on. So we do projects, but we have a very clear vision, future, what we should be doing. When I joined Baker in 1984 at one of his sites, all that I worked is under Laurie Baker. I never worked with anybody else. And I worked with him for 9 months. But I used to interact with him for a much longer period. I used to be very close to him. It's like a Gurukula Sampradaya. He taught me many things. There are people who have worked 9 years with him, but they did not come up to, if you call it success by the number of projects, or if you measure it by the success, by how a person is famous, or if you, I don't know how to measure success. Whatever we do, whatever this, I'm much ahead of most of those people. And I always think my life is full of doing unique projects, which nobody, even now, 25 years down the line, this project has completed 25 years. There is not even a project of this nature to such a large scale, with such a large number of visitors, is not much. Some of the other projects have also become like landmark projects. So, that's what I want to say. So if you have any questions, I'll try to answer. Or, you can ask anything about that. We'll try to spend, I like to interact with the students. Anybody can raise their hands and ask questions.
Good morning, sir. Himanshu Surana here, second year RV College of Architecture. My question is, what inspired you to get into traditional architecture and bring up these forms which nobody previously was taking up?
See, my life is full of surprises. I worked with Laurie Baker for 9 months. As told you, I don't have a degree in architecture. When I left Laurie Baker, I never thought I'll be able to design even a 250 square feet house. I left Laurie Baker in February 1985. At that time, the only person, there was nobody, there was no Cosford, no Habitat Technology, no Auroville Building Centers, none of these organizations. As far as cost-effective buildings or low-cost housing is done, Laurie Baker was the only person. There were some projects, but only person doing it. So when I passed out, Laurie Baker is a little bit inaccessible. Being a British person, doesn't speak the local language. So a lot of people ask me, can you do this house for me? So I took up houses, took up projects, and I did 17 projects in 1 year, 85, 86. It was a huge demand. I was traveling 25 days a month those times. When I used to work with Laurie Baker, the learning I mean, everything in architecture was learned, I will say, learning which I had in 1985 when I left him is learned from Laurie Baker. 80% or 90% of what I learned. So I don't have a formal education in that. So Laurie Baker I used to ask him questions every day. He will come to the site. He didn't have an office. So he'll come to the site. I was posted in one of the sites. He will come to the site. I'll have 3 or 4 questions written down. I'll ask him, how do you do this? And how do you give windows in a room? How do you decide on the position of the windows in a room? So, and sometimes he will tell me the answers very patiently. He was not famous. I was the 4th person to work with him. When I worked with Laurie Baker, he was 67. Nobody used to work with, Gerard Dacuna was the first person to work with Laurie Baker. Then after that, 2 more people joined. Unfortunately, fortunately, those 2 people did not become famous. One is Ramesh Bandakar, he is still practicing in Goa. A small time practice he sends. We are still in touch. There was the 3rd person was one Thomas. I don't know where he is. None of our peer groups have met him. Last time I heard he was in Delhi. He never started a practice of his own. So I was the 4th person. So Baker might have had a lot of time. He will answer. Some days he will say, Benny, today I'm busy. I have to visit 5 more sites. So he will rush to the other sites. Some days he will not come to the sites. It's not that every day he comes to the site. So I learned from him. At that time, in 1984, DakshinaChitra, the Madras Craft Foundation, which is the parent organization of DakshinaChitra, was formed. It's a trust which runs DakshinaChitra, which is called Madras Craft Foundation, was formed in 1984. Mrs. Deborah Tyagarajan, she is still the president. She is the president in 1984. She came to Trivandrum, met Laurie Baker, asked Laurie Baker whether he can get involved in this. So Laurie Baker introduced me to Mrs. Deborah Tyagarajan in 1984, the year which this trust was formed. There was no land. And she asked me whether I can do research for DakshinaChitra, the Kerala part research. So I said I can do. So I started going to buildings, going for houses. I started on my own. I went to see Laurie Baker buildings also. I did not see. Every Sunday I used to go and visit 2 or 3 buildings. Sometimes I'll take 1 week off and go and see some buildings, which he has done in Kottayam or remote places of Trivandrum. Bus only. There is no other means of transport. See the buildings. Come and ask him, why did you design like this? How to give a courtyard? What is the roof like? And he used to answer me patiently. And this is the learning I had. So this is one of the reasons. The other thing is that I met a person called Appukutan Nair, who was one of my mentors. I had so many mentors. I never worked with him. Yeah, we worked together in one project. He was the president of the local Kathakali club in Trivandrum, Margi Club. was the president of he is a retired chief engineer. When I met him, he was a retired chief engineer. And he has done the Kalamandalam theatre in Thrissur, near Thrissur. And he has done the DakshinaChitra theatre in Chennai. Both these projects were done in the 70s or early 80s, much before I joined. 1984, when I was working with Laurie Baker, 1985, there is an exhibition in Paris, Festival of India. There was a festival in India, there was an exhibition in Paris. You can sit comfortably. There was an exhibition in Paris, which was curated by Rajwal. Rajwal was a young architect at that time, and not very young, he might be in his 40s or 50s. He did the Festival of India Paris exhibition, which came out as a book. The book is available. Rajwal is the editor. And only 2 architects' work were chosen from Kerala. One is Laurie Baker. So when they inspected Laurie Baker's buildings, which buildings to portray in the Paris exhibition, I was with the team. Because Laurie Baker cannot accompany the team always. So I accompanied the team. The other work, they said, they chose Appukuttan Nair. Appukuttan Nair's DakshinaChitra Theatre was in Chennai, was featured in the Paris exhibition. None of the other architects' work was featured. Appukuttan Nair is not a qualified architect. He is a retired chief engineer, but he has learned traditional architecture systems from carpenters. It is a very, very different. I had renovated the DakshinaChitra Theatre 30 years later. We just did it about 4 years ago. I renovated the DakshinaChitra Theatre. The project came to me after so many years. I was very thrilled to do that project. But I decided to go and meet Appukuttan Nair. So I learned about traditional architecture from him. Baker and Appukuttan Nair never met each other. But when I was working, and I used to go on evenings or Sundays or some other day, I'll go and sit with him. He was the president. And when his son's house came, Appukuttan Nair's son had to build a house. Appukuttan Nair told his son that Benny will design the house for you. I did that house in 88. So but at that time I was very close to Appukuttan Nair. And so one of the reasons is that I learned from traditional architecture from various people. In a very, and everything which I learned about architecture or what I am doing now is learned in an unconventional way. It is not bookish knowledge. It is learned in an entirely different way. Now I'm doing projects of huge scales. But, so all these things is, so I was, Appukuttan Nair, I learned tremendously. I learned from carpenters. And the other reason is that 86, I applied for a scholarship in UK. I can say I might be one of the senior most conservation professionals in India who have a degree in conservation. Those people have been repairing and conserving buildings for generations. But somebody who is formally qualified, I might be one of the senior most persons. There are people who are older than me, but they might not have formal qualifications in conservation. Or they might have started their conservation practice junior to me. They might be aged. For example, Satyaprakash Varanasi, who is a leading conservation architect, is junior to me in conservation. He was 1 year junior to me in conservation. We did the same course. So when I applied, the scholarship came. Charles Waley's India scholarship. Now I was the 3rd person to get the scholarship. British Council scholarship, which was funded fully. So I chose conservation. The interview I met, there were 40 applications, 39 architects and 1 civil engineer applied for the course. And I got the application because the interview went completely in my way. The first question which I had to face was that there was a building which was demolished very recently in Kerala. Do you know about it? Asked them, is it Deshamangalam Mana? They said yes, because it was covered in national newspapers, Illustrated Weekly. I said the photographs which came in Illustrated Weekly is taken by me, because I try to save the building to the best of my ability. So after that, there was no doubt how much I am interested in conservation, how much I know about old buildings. Interview went completely in my way and qualified for the interview. I did not have any experience in conservation. The university stipulation says that 4 years is the minimum experience required for applying to the course. The British Council people sitting in Delhi didn't know it. I had only 2 years, 86, I had only 2 years experience. After I went to York University to do my masters, they wrote to the British Council, next year onwards take only people with 4 years experience. So I was very lucky. That is why I said my life is full of luck always. So this is one of the lucks. First question which came was a pure luck. The fact that I had only 2 years experience, the university rule says that 4 years, but 2 years I was selected for the course. So there I learned about how to conserve old buildings. So that was also one of the things which led me to the knowledge of conserving buildings, but when I came back, there was no work in conservation. So I had to resort to new buildings. And the rest is my projects talk about it, what I did afterwards. So I learned from them, from traditional architecture. I got interested in traditional architecture through a series of incidents. At that time, nobody used to talk about it. There were no publications, no books, no thesis, nothing. Padmanabhapuram Palace, which is one of the most beautiful buildings, there was no drawings for Padmanabhapuram Palace at that time of such a beautiful building, which I think the best masterpiece in architecture. I've traveled to more than 50 countries. I've seen so many World Heritage monuments as modern architecture buildings. If I select 10 buildings, which is the most beautiful buildings in the world, Padmanabhapuram Palace will be one of them, along with some other modern buildings as well. So it's not always heritage or traditions. I like some of the very modern buildings as well as part of it. Architecture, whether it's modern or traditional or ancient or anything, architecture needs to have certain qualities. There is only good architecture and bad architecture. Old buildings can be bad, new buildings can be good. So you have to see it in a different way if you look at how you see architecture, which is very, very important.
Good afternoon, sir. I want to know, does this kind of vernacular architecture, can it work in an urban city like Bangalore or Mumbai? Because nowadays most of the populace is shifting to these kind of places. So can this style of architecture survive in an urban context?
Okay, I've recently given a TED talk. You can listen to that talk. It is around 18 minutes. Vernacular architecture, the path to sustainability. Something like that is the title, or pathway to sustainability. Something like that. You can just Google or go to YouTube. It is there in YouTube. You see, I don't copy vernacular architecture as a style. You go to a Chinese restaurant, not the one, in a 5-star hotel, they will be putting so many artifacts from China. They will paint everything red and gold, might be black as well. And they will have some feng shui stuff, so that bells and things hanging. This is how you do. No relationship to architectural knowledge, no relations to concept, no relation to China. Externally copied as a style. Today I wear a dhoti and mundo. It's a traditional style. I wear a coat and suit and tie and everything. Person is the same. Similarly, design has to be good. It's not the style. If I had copied vernacular architecture as a style, I would not have become like this. We don't even take up 5% of the projects that comes to us. Impossible for us to take. Because, so many people ask us for projects. That's a huge demand for these kind of buildings. And so I don't copy it as a style. I copy it as a knowledge system. So the principles you learn from vernacular architecture can be easily applied for any kind of buildings. And till 2017, our practice was very different. We never used to take up IT buildings. We never used to take up builders projects. We never used to take up interiors projects. But now we are taking it up. We have finished one real estate projects of 73 units. We are taking up slowly more and more of these kind of projects we take up. Because we find that people think that this is an alternative stream. The biggest mistake I've made in my career, you all youngsters, that's what biggest mistake I made in one of the biggest mistakes. I made so many mistakes in my career and life. One of the biggest mistakes I made, I kept it into the alternate stream career. 2017, we as a decision took a decision to say that we don't want to be in the alternate stream, we have to get into the mainstream. So if a project, somebody approaches now, they want to do an apartment building, we will accept it. 5 years ago, we didn't accept it. Because these are the projects which change the face of the cities. And these are the projects where you can make a change. You can do villas or apartments in a different way, which can sell very well. The builder needs to make a profit. He can make a profit. Of course, otherwise he is not in business. He will do one project and sit at home. So within all these limitations, it's possible to make profits for the builder. At the same time, give a quality product to the user. Just 2 days ago, one of my friends called me because one of his friends had occupied one of the buildings which I have designed, which is a real estate project. And he called my friend and told him, such a nice architecture, Benny has done it, etc. Which is what people have to tell. Why should our apartments and IT buildings and offices look so bad? Or at least, why are the people seeing it as bad? Yesterday, I was with a client in Coorg, and he was asking me, why are the architects not able to understand these buildings which are coming up in our cities? We don't like it. As a general, he is not an architect, he is a client. He is asking me, why are people don't saying it? And I told him, except architects, everybody understands it. You might not accept that fact as students because you have been taught in a different way. We have to see that the buildings which are coming up is something which the public doesn't like, and people call it concrete boxes, glass boxes, matchbox-like structures, no life in those buildings. Why are we designing those buildings? And this is something which we have to look at. But design is very powerful. We can make beautiful. It's not the fault of the concrete. It is the way concrete is used. I also use concrete in my buildings, but I always tell my clients my buildings are 5 degrees cooler than the conventional buildings. And clients also accept it. Buildings are cooler compared with the conventional. Why can't we think of architecture in a different way which is suitable to the climate, which is the public likes, people live happily? Why are our buildings which are being pulled down in 30 years? Spencer Plaza here. Bangalore will have examples. I mean, those who know Chennai, there is a plaza. I've taken my relatives coming to my house judiciously to that mall. First mall in Chennai, you can say. Huge building. Not even a single person goes to that mall now. There is right in the heart of the city. The real estate prices, you will not get a land price if you sell that mall. Because better malls have come up. Even before Corona, 22% of the malls in US are closed. In the next 5 years, by 2025, another 25% malls will be closed in US. Why are we building malls? Why are we building things which will become very difficult? Building becoming obsolete in 20 years. Of course, we will make money by doing this, but you have to think as youngsters, do you want to do it? Chennai, I mean, definitely Bangalore also will have the old malls. Nobody goes to those malls. Or people might just go to the malls because if there is, old malls did not have cinema theaters. And some of the things, there were some statistics. I've designed in the Phoenix Mall is one of the biggest malls. I've designed some interiors of some shops. And the clients have told me every 3 months the shops are changing. People are not in business, they are not doing well. If you regularly visit malls, you see how many malls are closed, how many shops in a mall are being closed. Just Google US malls being closed. You will find answers. There are no takers. In 25 years. Buildings becoming obsolete. This is something which you have to look at. Now, coming to this thing, people have a tendency that high-rise buildings. Charles Correa has argued in his book, The New Landscape, very clearly 2-storied buildings are enough. High density, low rise. Leon Trier, you might also heard about him, has talked very solidly, argued for selective kind of architecture. Le Corbusier, who can be one of the architects I admire the most. I've seen some of his buildings, fabulous buildings. In his book called The City of Tomorrow, which was written in 1920s, he has said no residential building should be more than 15 stories and no apartment should be more than 50 stories. And he also said, the buildings, Corbusier in his book, The City of Tomorrow, he said 85% should be left as open spaces and only 15% should be built up in cities. What has happened? The followers of Corbusier, the followers of the so-called modern architecture with a capital, built 85% and 15% was left as open spaces. I go to IIT Roorkee, I drive through Delhi, I get down, there is an airport nearby but not very convenient. So I get down at Delhi airport and go through that Ghaziabad. And you will see vertical slums already 5 years, 10 years old, become vertical slums. Do you want such kind of architecture to come? And this has become like a very, very important thing in the time of the climate crisis and the global warming. Very waste of resources. So you have to look at architecture, you have to look at the principles. Christopher Alexander, in his book, The Pattern Language, he has said the residential buildings should not be more than 4 stories high. He called it 4-story limit. So you have to look at various thought processes which have been put forward by various think tanks of architecture and try to put it across, study it, and try to make an argument. Hutko has done a study where he said that looking at the when you build all these the infrastructure goes for a toss. The traffic congestion, how Bangalore has become such a crowded and, people have said unbearable. Very traffic. Chennai is much better. So you have to look at these things. Do you want these things to come? Do you want to be a part of these designs which has come up, which is not good for our life, our future generations? You have to see it. If there is no justification, then I've also done multi-story buildings. So, I mean, it's not true that I have not done anything. I've done a 9-story building. Once I had to do it. So I try to do it in a different way. That is what I can try to say. Even Chennai city, I've done multi-storied or beyond that 50 feet height as the building. So you can do it. But you have to justify what you are doing. You understand? So you have to take it in a much wider sense. And you can listen to the talk where I say why vernacular architecture is the future. Any other questions? Yeah.
Good afternoon, sir. I am Aditya. So I want to ask,
Just switch on the mic.
it's on.
Okay, then.
Yeah. So in
Can you close?
the coming semester, fourth semester, we are supposed to do housing. So we have 3 topics: student housing, community housing, and habitat housing. So, do you have any thoughts on that?
I have done some housing projects. I've designed a whole village in Maharashtra after the Latur earthquake. I designed a village in Gujarat again after the Bhuj earthquake. And after the tsunami, I did 2 large housing projects in Tamil Nadu. One is around 1,500 houses. The other one was about 535 or 565 houses. When I took over the tsunami houses, I learned quite a bit. You see, my practice has been learning from one project, use it for the next project. I did not learn any housing or any of these things at any point of time. No, you understand that. I didn't learn. So I've been learning. But based on the 2 projects experience, I decided that I will put forward certain things in the tsunami housing project. I told very clearly that we will design each house individually. Why can't we have 1,500 designs for 1,500 houses? We put flex and everything at that time. 1,500 houses, 1,500 designs. That's what happened in the building. And Tamil Nadu government used to showcase that project when World Bank team or everybody came. There is an extra cost involved in it. The extra cost in that project would have been 2% of the project cost or 3% of the project cost. Because I did not sit with every individual house owner, but my team sat with each individual house owner. Very clearly. None of the houses looks the same. Either in color, parapet design, some house has veranda, the plans were different, they expanded the house differently. If you go to Tarangambadi, Trankoba, which is there, you will find that it's a middle class housing colony. People have added huge, I don't have the slides, people have made huge changes to the house because they feel it is their house. We did not use the conventional contractors. Because a conventional contractor will not understand the language of a fisherman. There were housing experts who came and told me, who have worked in similar projects, you will not be able to start the project. Because fishermen is a very delicate community to work with. They will come and say one thing today, next day they will come and say. But we worked with them. And the project was quite successful. In between, it was funded by Swiss Red Cross, which is a foreign NGO, Switzerland NGO, and Philips, who collected huge amount. So it's funded by some foreign NGOs. In between the money, the cost slightly went up because the foundation had to be deeper. We had to raise the houses that, if a future tsunami comes, these houses will be safe. I can tell very clearly. And so the people, the funds went up. So government had a lot of money. Government said they will take over the houses. The people in Tranquebar made a march to Secretariat and told that we want the same houses to be done. We are ready to wait for funding. We don't want the governments to construct houses. Because they have experience of government constructing houses which has fallen down in 30 years or 20 years, started leaking, no repairs, no ownership feeling. If you go to a government sponsored project, if you visit one of them, they will say, see the house which the government has given us. I have listened. I visited one of the government projects. The house owner was telling me, this is government's plans to do family planning because the houses will fall down and people will die. This is government. I listened to that extreme sense. So if you want to do a project like that, it is possible. I told this idea because I've done 2 projects. I don't want to do a project similar to the one I've done in Puj or Latur. I wanted to do something differently. The Swiss Red Cross came and we had to present the project for the funding. There was a Swiss architect who came. And he came and the project team was presenting and all those things. And after I presented the concept of the project, the Swiss architect asked me, if you answer one question, we will give you the funding. 40 crores was the cost. So the question was this: suppose tomorrow you die in a car accident, what will happen to the project? I am presenting the project. This was the question they asked. I said, how I am empowering my team to handle that project. It's not dependent on me. The projects which we are doing, the scale or anything, the quality which we have kept or whatever is there, is not done by me. It's done by the team. The team is very, very important to do it. The concept is very important. We have to think out of the box. This is very critical. We should not think, there is a famous British professor who teaches in one of the architecture colleges. I don't remember his name. He said, architects should be the last people to be involved in a disaster housing project. Because he has said, they have no training or they don't know how to deal in a disaster. They don't understand the language of a people who lost a house in a disaster. He has written an article. I'm just trying to quote. If you want, you email me. I'll tell you his name. So this is very important. You see, you have to see in a housing project. You can build a house for 300 square feet or 400 square feet, whatever you need. Build a house. That is physical requirements. As far as the government is concerned, they are. If you look at the budget statement, 1 million houses this year, 3 million houses this year, 2 million houses. If you add up the number, our housing problem should have been solved by now. Never. And government has said that we will be solving it by 2030. Never going to happen. When I passed out in 84, there were 25 million families without a house, and the number is 65 million now. In spite of the fact that government has funded all these projects, in spite of the fact there are so many architects, in spite of the fact there are so many engineers, in spite of the fact that India has grown digitally and financially and technologically, everything very strong. So this is a way, it's a social problem. It's a cultural problem. So you have to look at things in architecture has many of these dimensions. I will say that my success, or if you call me as a successful person, judging by the number of projects we get or number of projects we do, look at that, is because we deal with projects in a different way. If it is physical requirement, there are so many people who can do it. We look at the psychological, we look at the social, we look at the cultural. We come out with a concept which is very different. And we know how to implement our projects, execute our projects. There is one area where many of the architects fail is in getting the projects executed. We never take up construction. We don't have construction teams, we don't have contractors. We have done projects in different parts of India. Now we are doing projects in Madhya Pradesh, Andhra, Telangana, Maharashtra, Gujarat. We just finished one project. We are starting another project. We are doing projects across India. Delhi, we finished one project recently. So all these things, we are doing it because these different dimensions come into play. So it's not just one dimension, which is a physical or aesthetical aspect. These aspects, I'm not playing down the importance. If we don't make the building beautiful, people will not come to you. I would have been most termed as a technocrat or doing with one technology. There were other people who have come after me or anything, or much bigger scale and everything they have done, but the difference is executing, engineering the design is very difficult. It's not, you need to have a thing. You are not being taught on those things. You know the actor Surya, I was just flying with him and he was sitting next to me. So we're just talking. He was building his house. He designed, architects. He changed 2-3 architects. So you are just asking, why are you changing? Or he says, they show me a living room which looks like this, and the structural engineer comes and says a beam is required like this. And everything which I had imagined or what the architect has shown me is not going to happen. So he said, what can I do? He was asking me, can't the architects think about it and show me how the building? If it is so, the buildings, when it is completed, should look more beautiful than the 3D perspective that we will be doing. If we look at our project, we don't put even a single 3D perspective in our website or our social media pages. We put only the buildings which we have constructed. And we think they are more beautiful than the 3Ds we have done. Whereas I know there are people who put only 3D images, not the actual building. This is very critical. One of the cases where architects make mistakes. See, nothing comes without hard work. If you want to be successful, young people can become successful in practice if you are able to produce good results. Don't think it is a marketing thing, it's any of those things. It is nothing to do with marketing, nothing. If you do marketing and get some projects, the office will run for 5 years. But if you really want to do a project and really want to set up an office, and if you really do good work, you don't have to look back. The clients will come in search of you. The hard work, the creative work is the most important thing, which you have to do. For the housing, think about it. This article I've written about my experience in the fisherman village, it's in my blog. My PhD thesis, I have a doctorate from IIT Madras. Hard-earned doctorate, not by paying money or not honorary doctorate or anything. IIT Madras, I have a doctorate, which is one of the things which pull down my practice a bit, because I was doing IIT, it's not very easy to get a doctorate. I got it, and my thesis is in my website. The exact PDF of the thesis I submitted is in my website, which you can go through. So this housing was one of the dearest subjects which I had, or which still have. You understand that? Still have. It's very, very important to look at the social, cultural, psychological, all these aspects. Aspirations. People have aspirations. You have to look at the aspirations of the people. Whether it's you are building a 5,000 square feet or a 50,000 square feet house. We don't do 50,000, but we are still doing large sizes because the clients come. And the size of the house have gone up over the years. But even a 400 square feet, he also has aspirations and dreams. You have to address those issues. His aspirations are at a different level compared with the aspirations of a person doing a 20,000 square feet house or 10,000 square feet house. As architects, we have to take a balanced judgment and advise the client or the owner in the proper way, which we try to do it in our practice very clearly. how we deal with the clients. Many of my architects friends are, how are you getting all these interesting projects? I said, it's you who have to make the project interesting. The project comes to you as a normal project. You have to think about, dream about it and convert it into interesting projects. We are not getting, we are getting the cross section which is there in Chennai or India only. A lot of people say our Instagram page is doing quite well. I mean, we like the photos. We are great. I mean, I listen to that word at least 3 times a day if I go out. We are a great fan of your works. Not only architects, even the ordinary clients, we are following the page for the last 1 year. We are doing a temple in Orissa now. The Swamiji, the top Swamiji is telling me, I am your follower for the last 1 year. So this kind of things is what you convey, and you have to, this is what it is. You don't have to, it's not nothing to do with marketing or any of those. Do good projects, make people say this project is good. Force people to say that Aditya's design is good. It might be toilet extension. But even the toilet, you can make it very interesting. Don't think that you have to get somebody, you need a godfather, nothing. I don't have any godfather when I came to Chennai 27 years ago. It's very, very difficult to establish in a metro city. And it's very difficult to keep a position also, not very easy. I tell my office people, it's very, very difficult to be on that position. Architect's career is like a bell curve. When they become 35, they start climbing the curve. 45, they reach the top. And by 55, they start climbing down. You look at the career of any of the architects, it's like that. The Frisker Prize award winner, Doshi, I've seen him conferences before the Frisker Prize coming and sitting, nobody going and talking to him. They will go after some other people who are the trendy kind of people. But that trends remains there only for a short period. I tell the youngsters in my career is starting now. You have to be on the top at least for 30 years. So plan, the design is very key. There is no marketing gimmick or in any of these things. I've never asked project to a single person, please give me a project. Even now I don't ask, I've never asked also. Starting from Mammootty or Nandan Nilekhani to Gopalakrishna Gandhi or anybody, they come to me approach me for a project. That is important. Designs has to speak. Try to build that. You don't require too many projects. I tell the Arundhati Roy only wrote one novel. She became famous with that one novel. 1 or 2 buildings is enough for you to pick up. But do it so well, outstanding. And how can you do an outstanding project? Putting time and effort. I know very well that I don't know how many projects we are doing in our office. 50 plus, I'm just trying to tell. 50 plus projects we are doing, small and big and everything. So my time for those 50 projects is limited. You cannot spend the time which I used to spend when I started. When I started this project, every day, morning I came and evening I left. That's not the situation now. But you are youngsters. Try to work on it, bring outstanding ideas and create beautiful buildings. Then you will have to be accepted. See, now it's not those things. Now social media is there, you can publish it, your projects, people will notice it. And then when we came up, there was no social media. Some magazine has to write about us that you are doing a good project. Now things have changed.
I wanted to ask about communication as a skill that architects require. It is a client-architect interaction usually. So how did you learn the skill of communication, and how do you think we all should indulge into all practices, and how should we improve?
See, every skill is to be acquired. Let me tell from my life experience. I did not know anything about architecture, even 5 years older than you. I did not know anything about architecture. I did not know anything about housing or town planning or many other things. Situation is the same. We had to study, we had to work on research or any of these things. Communication is very important. One thing in communication, never say no to a client. It can be a topic of its own. Never say no to a client. Clients don't like it. They have their egos. They come and tell you, you tell. Well, how we do with the clients, I tell it in the first meeting, I tell very clearly. This is what I tell them. I have a way of working. You can see it in my website. What kind of projects I do. Don't ask me to do something against it. It's very difficult to do something which is beyond my conviction. You understand that? The second thing I tell the clients, none of the projects in my website looks the same, because each one is individually customized and created. I can very well tell, and there is no projects which looks the same in my website. Or I might have done 400 residences or 300 residences. We might have put website 50 residences, but there are so many which I have not put it in my website, but none of them look the same. I said, tell them. I said it's created for you. But I am doing something with 30 years experience or 38 years of experience. When I say this will not work, you have to accept it. But at the same time, you can tell me anything. I'm very flexible. Because when some of the clients are very reluctant to come and tell me, they say, we want a 4-bedroom house, 5,000 square feet. You decide, you are so experienced. I said, it's not a house where I'm going to live. It's a house where you are going to live. Unless I know your way of living, your way of things, how will I be able to design your house? So I need to know. And this is a skill which you get the information from them, which I think you should be. See, these are the skills which should be taught in the architecture colleges. These are human skills. I won't call it soft skills. You should know how to interact with a person. You should know how to talk to a person, which I did not know. I did Mammuti's house when I was 30 years old. My fees went up from 15,000 rupees for a house in 1992 to 1.75 lakhs for that. 10 times my fees went up. For me, it was a thing. First time I met Mammootty, I was in Kerala at that time. He saw one 800 square feet house which I have done for another film director who is quite famous now. He won national awards and everything. He was very young. Sham was my age. He was 30 years. He is not living in that. His son is living in that 800 square feet house. I did that house. Mammootty did not see the house, but people talked about that house which I did for Shyama Prasad, who is a very well-known film director even now. Mammootty called me one day morning and saying that I would like you to do the design of my house. Why don't you? It's in Chennai. That time I had not shifted to Chennai. So my Mammootty said, why don't you come and do my house? I was I don't know. I've never seen. He was a superstar at that time. 30 years ago, he was the number one actor in there. So he comes, sends a car to the airport, picks me up. One of the very famous film directors, now Ranjit, he was a scriptwriter at that time. He picks me up from the airport, so I just go there. And Mammootty is explaining, I want the house. I don't want any marble in my house. I don't like this glass in cow. I want my house to be natural. I want people to say that my house is nice. I don't want people to say that my house is luxurious. Mammootty has built a huge house. I don't want people to say. I want people to say that Mammootty has built a nice house. Mammootty is under, this is what he used to tell. So he briefed me. He's telling, I don't know what to talk to him. I was quiet. That day I had lunch with him, I had dinner at his house. I did not open my mouth at all because I've never met a person of that celebrity level at my age of 30. I don't know how the cinema actors are now. I don't have a probably Mammootty now we are doing Vikram's house. But we don't, I don't have a problem. My office people meet Vikram more than what I meet him. But when you do the first time, that was there. So the communication is very important. Never say no to a client. If client says something which is against what your interest, I will say, let me think about it. After 2 weeks, I thought quite a lot about your idea. I don't think it will work for our project. The client, 99% the client will accept it. So the way you talk, the way you put it across to the client, it's a skill which is very, very important to master. You need to have good PR skills. You need to have good communication skills. It doesn't mean that I'm a person introvert in nature. But when I start talking, I know how to communicate, how to put it across. Very clear. I don't go for parties. Even for the talks or anything, I'm very reluctant to attend the talks or any of these things. I hardly attend conferences or many of those things. It's not that I'm not being called for conferences. Even those conferences, I try to avoid it as much as possible. Very clearly. So this one is communication skill is you have to improve upon it. There are so many YouTube videos. I never used to make a public speech. During my engineering course and +2 and schools, I made only one public speech for an election campaign in this thing. Only one public speech. I never used to make a speech or anything. Now I go and give a talk or anything. It's very easy for me. I don't prepare for anything. Any topic I tell them, I'm not bothered. Any topic you give me, I'm quite fine with any of the topics. I don't get prepared for anything. It's the skill. For that, you should have a wider understanding of knowledge and pick up the skills. Clients are smarter than you. They will see through you when you try to convince them or blah. We as a policy in our office, I told my office staff that never tell a lie. Not only the clients, not even in the office. You are a student, I teach. I'm visiting faculty in two universities now. So all the assessments and everything. With the email IDs of the universities. But because since I'm senior, they give me some concession, I don't have to appear. So I get all these things, the faculty here and will know how many leave applications come. They will produce a medical certificate, all these. We know as a teachers, I don't teach, knows that they might not be correct, most of them. Why are people telling lies? So we just try to run the office in a particular way, which is what makes it. So dealing with the client, there are certain things. I told never hide anything from the client. If you make a mistake, admit to the client that you have made a mistake. When you try to hide a mistake, client will see through it in no time because they are coming and building a house because they reached a particular stage of their career and life. They're quite senior in their professions or anything. Don't think that they don't know about architecture. So try to be the way you deal. So for us it is very easy. Every mistake we admit. Yesterday I admitted a mistake. We are doing a resort in Coorg. So in that, when I went to that, it's a presidential suite kind of, the Raja suite they call it. It is a 800 mm door. 80 centimeter door is the toilet door. Never in our office we don't give anything lesser than 900 mm even for a toilet door. But when I checked, I told the contractor, now our office is like 900 mm door, there is no dimension. But finally we just went to ask the person who heads the CAD in my office said that it is in the drawing it is 800 mm. I admitted, immediately sent a message to my client. 800 mm was a mistake. Please change the door to at least 900 mm. So the client has said okay. See, the client can shout at you. And or you have to pay for this damage. It never happens, but this one. But I admitted the mistake to the client very openly. Because they will see through it. The transparency. This is the future, They will tell, when he admitted a mistake, that this is there. Once you don't have to be, architects are not gods who will never make any mistake. We all make mistakes, but we should learn from the mistakes. And then I did not shout at my CAD people also. I said, make sure that this mistake is not repeated. But it happens sometimes. In spite of that, we have quality checks at every stage and what is to go. Still mistakes happen in our office too. So the way you approach it, develop the skills. This is something which the university will not teach you. There are so many other skills which has to be taught. You might be very talented in design. There are many talented people in design, students. They have never come successful in career. It's not the first rank or the IQ which is a criteria for being successful in career. So understand that. Very highly designed, talented people who run an office for 5 years or 8 years, but they will fail in the long term. To be successful in the long term, you need to develop communication skills and all other skills. There are so many other skills. That's why I'm putting it as human skills. I don't want to use the soft skills. This is not being taught in college. You need how to interact, how to deal with the labor, how to deal with the contractor. You understand that. This is the way it has to go. How to deal with your employees. So all these things are very, very critical. If you are fail in this, you will not become successful in this. If I don't know, I don't sketch anything. I don't have sketching skills at all. If you ask me to sketch that chair, I cannot do. I don't have any sketching. But I don't need. I am employing people who knows how to sketch a chair. You understand that? But you need to know certain things when you run an office, and that is very critical. Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to know about your favorite design project. Like, if you could talk about it.
See, I won't say any favorite project. All the projects I like, what I've done. I will very confidently say, nobody will say any of my projects is done badly. I am very sure no client will say. There are some clients where you had to quarrel or you had to drop the project halfway in between because they don't pay the fees. We have to run an office. So we are very strict with the fees. Our fees is not very low either. Not very high either. We have to run. So all the projects are there. You see, the most important thing in the future is to be creative and innovative. This is the future. I don't know whether you have seen a video which is circulated very recently. There was a survey, poll done in, I don't know whether you have seen it, poll done in I think in one of the European countries. They put 3 architects design. Everybody was given the same brief. 3 architects design, 3 plans, and AI generated plan. Similarly, 3 descriptions of the architects and the AI generated description. Renders, which are 3 architects renders as well as a AI generated. It said 68% of the votes were won by the AI generated designs, which means the softwares are going to replace 80% of the architects. We don't know how Nokia was wiped out, how Kodak means photography. Kodak was wiped out from photography. It will not be very difficult. So you have to be creative, you have to be innovative, and that is the principle which we keep in our practice. Every project we do with an interest, it should be the best of ours. We don't look at the money which comes to us. There are only 2 people in my office who knows how much money comes into us, what the clients are paying. Even the number 2 in my office doesn't know how much money we get on a project. He might know for some, but he doesn't know. It's not the money which should design how much time you devote, but he had to give the right amount of time. The work should come from the heart, not from your brain. If the work comes from the heart, the project will be good. That is the simple principle. The clients will see very easily whether you are done. You go to a shop and buy a sari from one of the shops. The saleswoman will try to sell a sari to you. You know very well whether she is selling that sari with a heart or she is just doing it as a job. You know how to make it out. Similarly, the clients will make out what you are giving to them is whether coming from the architect's heart or it's coming purely as a mechanical process or as a factory producing drawings. With the AI going to take over, you have to be very clear. It sits in YouTube. It has in 2 days it had some 4 lakhs views. Huge one which is circulating very. If any of you have not seen it, just ask me, I'll send you the link. I'll send the link to Mayank because he is in Tanzania. You can just see the link. It's very, very critical. So the future is to be there. We are trying to build an office which will be very competitive in future. Thanks a lot.